Hello everyone, this is John from RPGs and More, and in today's video I'm going to announce that I am going to start a new project, and this new project is going to be a new solo RPG series. I am not abandoning the Knave series, I'm just putting it on hold for right now, and I'll explain why in a little bit. First, let's talk about what this new series is going to be. I want to make use of some new tools that I've found and a new idea that has come across to me, and try to present it in a fun and entertaining way while still maintaining the same even tone, easy listening style that I've been doing in most of my recent videos. I'm hoping that this will make the experience of listening to me playing a solo game a little more enjoyable than perhaps it might have been in some of my earlier videos where I was trying really hard to be animated and I think I overdid it a little. So, but that's my personal opinion on myself, and I'm probably my own worst critic. All right, let's get started on the tools that I'm going to be using. That's what this video is going to be about. I'm announcing the series and I'm going to talk to you about the tools. First, I'm going to be using some large-scale dice. You've seen these before in my other videos. These are the large-scale ChessX dice. I'll be using 3 6-sided dice with the occasional D20. The reason why I'm going to be using those dice for these videos is because I am going to attempt to showcase my rolls a bit more. I have a new tool which allows me to kind of move the camera around a little bit without it being as jerky as it would have been with my previous setup. So hopefully this will work nicely and allow you all to see the rolls that I make and read them. For example, this one was a 4, a 4, and a 6. Oh, can I keep that one? Can I, please? No, I can't. All right, moving on. Next, I'm going to be using one of these journals here. These are, I buy these from the Dollar Tree. They are a hardbound little book that you can get for $1 each, and each one is large enough to hold just enough information for, I think, one campaign. So I'm looking forward to recording everything in that one journal. Now, let's talk about the rules that I'm going to be using. I have a special announcement, but I'm going to save that one for last. First, let's talk about the rules that I'm going to use for this video. I am going to return to where it all started. This is mostly for my personal comfort, and also to showcase my own house rules and some systems that I personally wrote and created for this system. What is that system, you might ask? That system is going to be Swords and Wizardry Continual Light by Eric Tenkar. I am returning to this system because I am very comfortable with it. It is something, it's like putting on your favorite old t-shirt that you've worn forever, and you can't, and in this case, I can still take this t-shirt out and wear it around to parties and no one's going to mind. Okay, so on top of that, I will also be using the OSR solo rules, the PDF that I got at drive-thru. And this is what I used during the first series for Swords and Wizardry Continual Light, and so I'll be revisiting it again and seeing how much more mileage I can get out of this GM emulator that is designed for OSR games. So, another supplement that I'm going to be making use of is something that I have not done before, and this will be kind of a new experience for me, but I think it'll be a little bit fun. I'll be using the social status rules. What the social status rules are going to do is, with Swords and Wizardry Continual Light, your starting equipment is dictated by the class that you pick, right? That's what I talked about in the original video where I talked about Swords and Wizardry Continual Light. Well, I'm modifying that because I'm using this social status. So now I'm going to, instead of having the pre-selected equipment, I'm going to be rolling 3 6-sided dice. Excuse me. And those 3 6-sided dice are going, their total is going to decide what the social status of my character or characters are. And that's also going to be, when I multiply that number by 10, the starting funds that each of my characters have. And this can take us anywhere from them being, you know, a peasant, a serf, a humble folk, middling types. We could be respectable. We could be pillars of society. Or we could end up as, what is that term? The underclass, which is, you know, not quite as likely, because most of the time if you were the underclass, you probably wouldn't be going adventuring because you'd be too busy working in order to go on to an adventure. But, you know, that's part of that one is. And then the next 2 things that I'm going to be using actually come from the first issue of the Torchlight online magazine, or e-zine, that Eric Tenkar released. And these are 2 rule sets that I actually am the author of. I wrote these for this magazine, and it was very much a pleasure to do that for a system that I have a bit of experience with and a lot of enjoyment for, and I want to showcase them a little bit in this series. Those are, first, the social combat rules that I created, and second, the alternate thief abilities rules that I also created. Now, the alternate thief abilities I'll talk about first. What that does is that allows the thief class, or the rogue if you prefer, to customize what their abilities are while still keeping it simple and to the code of Swords and Wizardry Continual Light, which is as easy as possible to get your hands around. And I also modify the way that the die roll is presented just slightly in order to account for modifiers and make it kind of easier to read on the page. So, but let's talk about the social combat. The social combat rules that I wrote are designed to allow a player character to engage in social conflict, be that in the king's court or exchanging barbs in the tavern with other patrons when you don't want to actually draw your weapons, but you want to see who's got the best jest. Or it could be giving people quips and quipping in the middle of combat. Any of those things could be covered by the social combat rules. They actually function identically to the melee and ranged combat rules, or physical combat rules, so you don't need to learn any new systems. Instead of hit points, you lose morale points, and your morale points are identical to your hit points. So as you level up, you roll a die to increase your hit points, and then that's by that same amount, you could roll another die for your morale, or you could have the same die count for both. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to roll them separately. But we'll see how that goes, and then I might change it for the next run if I do another one. We'll see. Also, what this does is the social conflict rules, or social combat rules, are a tool of inclusivity in my mind, because I have encountered several people who love role-playing games, but they're really not into the acting and the voices and talking in their character's voice aspect of things. It's not that they don't appreciate it, it's just not in their skill set or their comfort level. And they tend to feel left out in scenes where that sort of thing is happening, where the players are kind of engaging in with the king's court, and they're really trying to one up the competition and whatnot. And I always kind of felt bad because during those scenes, those players typically would just sit back and do nothing. And so I created these rules as a vehicle, as kind of the beginning of a vehicle, really, to give them something to do that would contribute to how the scene is playing out. So you'd still have the scene playing out like you normally would, but you'd have a little more codification to it. It operates under the principle of you're attacking with verbal weapons, like you could attack somebody with puns, you could attack somebody with a direct insult, you could attack somebody with hyperbole. And then you have armor, social armor. And social armor is partially your social status will automatically give you some social armor, or you could invest in your social status to increase your social armor, I guess is a better way of putting it. And then there's learning proper body language in order to kind of, not kind of slump yourself to make yourself look like a better target, but also to have yourself feel like a better target. And there's also education. Someone who's better educated tends to be able to kind of let things slide off their shoulders. Those sorts of things. They're investments that you can make for your character to make them better socially armored. They don't guarantee that you'll never receive a social attack or have your morale go down, but they will protect you. And that's kind of in a nutshell how those rules work. So I'll be using those things in order to play out this game. But the other thing that I want to do, and part of what also is going to make this a little unique, is I want to, for the first time on this channel, and frankly, I'm hoping this will be the first successful one I have done in my gaming career, but I want to do a randomly generated hex crawl, where I start from the beginning with not a whole lot prepped. I want to have basically my first hex, where the players are going to start, and then the rest of it's going to be more or less blank aside from I am going to establish a few things because this is going to happen in the setting that I've already created for some books that I've been writing. So some things have been established. Those will be on the hex map, but other things won't be. And I will let this process kind of draw the map for me in some of these areas because I haven't actually published an official map yet. And this might be a fun way to do it. I may end up hating what's done and throw it all away too. So it's not automatically canon, but it is a fun thought experiment. Anyway, the rules I'm going to be using for that come from the Basic Fantasy RPG website. Their forums, they have a section for material that is worked on by fans for supplemental material. This is the Hex Crawl Adventures PDF that you can get for free from the Basic Fantasy RPG forums. And this particular one is written by Luke Kennedy. When I read these rules, I was instantly inspired. And I just said, okay, this is something I have to try. This is something I really want to do. So that is the rules that I'm using. But there's one other surprise I wanted to show you. So let's do that. And the surprise is this. Ta-da! Let's set this down on the table so you can get a better look at it. I am going to do my best to incorporate miniatures and terrain into this series. I have created, using my handy-dandy Dwarven Forge tiles, a stage upon which the encounters can take place. And I intend to use sort of combat zones in a sense. That if you want to know more about them, then I suggest you look up the video by Professor Dungeon Master of Dungeon Craft fame that talks about combat zones. And he explains all of it much better than I could. But a quick and a dirty explanation is this center big tile that has the mosaic on it, that's going to be where all the melee combat happens. If there's a room, it'll probably be this piece that represents the room. Then the circle around it of squares is going to represent sort of the areas either directly outside of the room or in a larger scene, the kind of where the actors in the scene will be standing if they are capable of engaging in ranged combat, but not necessarily like, this guy could, spit a fireball over here at our hero, but the hero could not melee attack them without expending their move in order to change the scene, in which case this figure would move over here and this one would move there to represent the change of scene as the hero kind of moves everything around. This outer ring represents those figures that are visible or could be heard by the heroes, but are not close enough to engage in either melee or ranged combat. So that's where they would be, and that kind of will allow us to see what's going on. Now, I may play with this a little bit more. I may see if I can create a sort of outdoor version as well. But for right now, this is what I've got, and I'm looking forward to giving it a try. So, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. That is the crux of what I am currently hoping to embark upon with all of you. I hope you will join me for this neat adventure and experiment. If you think that this is a great addition to what I've been doing and would like to continue to see more, excuse me, get a drink, then please give the video a like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I intend to go through the character creation process step by step in order to show people how my social combat rules and the social system are incorporated into these characters. It's going to lift the complication a little bit over standard continual light rules, but not by much, I don't think. But that's part of what this is an experiment about, is to see how it works. Okay, like I said, if you like this, if you want to see more stuff like this, then please go ahead and leave the video a like. Leave a comment down below letting me know if you're excited for this, or if you're not interested, you'd rather see more of my other more relaxed let's talk about stuff videos. Let me know of that too, and I'm open to those suggestions as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for stopping by, and peace be with you. Bye-bye.